Hey, it's Gina again with my second video for my midterm project. Hopefully this upload goes smoother than the last one even. It wouldn't work on Chrome, I had to re-download Internet Explorer, it was a whole thing. Anyways, in this video I will be addressing this obsession with the other. This spans from the freak shows of yesteryear to ogling an amputee on the side of the road. Over the years, this practice has been privatized, and according to Rachel Adams' Sideshow USA, which is this one here, which I highly recommend if you're interested in the history of freaks and sideshows at all. This began with the freak portraits of the 20th century. They enhance the otherness because it facilitates a gaze unfettered by confrontation with another living person. I have some examples here. For example, this is Charles Tripp, and he was called the Armless Wonder. And this is Jean Libera, also known as Lalu. And he is shown here holding the arms of his partial conjoined twin. Now, in this day, we have people watching documentaries on Netflix or reading BuzzFeed articles about othered bodies with fascination on their own, but that doesn't mean that people on the receiving end don't feel this interest that we have on their bodies without considering the person underneath that makes them different. In the Desire and Disgust article by Alison Kafer, she explores her experience with devoteeism. That is the practice of some people to be somewhat obsessed with desire for amputated bodies. She details a letter from Steve in which he outlines his desire and excitement for amputee women, as well as express an ideal known as amputee exceptionalism. This is apparent in the whole sect of devotees, and that they see themselves as better people because they are attracted to a body which might otherwise be labeled as disgusting. These responses are also echoed in her family and friends' responses to her emails from people like Steve. They respond in disgust, as if anybody that was attracted to amputees had something wrong with them. She also found that many devotees used code names, as if their fantasies were so dark they didn't want their true identities coming out. Eventually, though, she saw that devotees actually helped some women's self-esteem, and to be desired by these devotees is better than not being desired at all. The thing that makes it bad for the community, however, and gives devoteeism a bad name, is the constant reassurance that love from a devotee is all there is for amputee women, and basically they need to take what they can get. What I found interesting was the demographic information on devotees, that they're primarily white, middle-class, educated men, pretty much as far from other as you can get. This draws parallels for me to Victorian freak shows and minstrel shows, where white men would gawk at exotic, othered bodies, which boils down to objectification. It reminds me of Grace McDaniels in the Adams book, and I actually have a picture of her. She looks as though she has tumors or something all over her face, and she was exhibited because of her uncommon ugliness. Yet she is said to have rejected numerous marriage proposals before settling down with a devoted husband. Kafer often calls back to this play between devotion and disgust, that their bodies are disgusting to everyone except devotees. These devotees are exploitative to amputee women by emotionally abusing them into thinking that they are undesirable by anyone else but them. It can often lead to stalking, where devotee men will report on sightings of disabled women and where to find them by finding out where they do most of their errands or shopping. They also include photographing them and volunteering at amputee-centric organizations. This is not frowned upon in the devotee community because the amputee women are not given their autonomy, but are seen as lucky women to have somebody care for them in this way. Some women do find confidence and discover how to be sexy as an amputee through these sites, which is wonderful if they can find empowerment from it. But many women find it abhorrent, like the author, to be objectified in this way because of their bodies. While this article mainly focuses on attractiveness and desirability being the only roadblocks to sexuality for disabled people, The chapter in disability theory outlines many other difficulties faced by disabled people in claiming a sexual culture of their own. Disabled sex is often looked upon as something that shouldn't happen, and their sexuality is often dismissed or overlooked, and they are even seen as asexual. This happens because of many reasons that may not be necessarily overtly connected to their sex life. For instance, many of the ideals we associate with sex and romance include ableist bias, like long walks on the beach, the slow motion run across a field, even getting down on bended knee to propose. Most romantic gestures that exist in the public context revolve around having control of all functions of the human body. Because sex is so closely tied to the human experience and furthering the human race, sometimes disabled people become dehumanized. This social stigma extends to the offspring of disabled people, which is similar to that of gay couples, in that it is somehow tainted. In order to combat this, the disabled community has started to lobby for private spaces. Often their privacy is invaded, especially in hospitals and group homes. While they are in the care of these people, erotic situations often occur, but staff ignores them by acting professional, because in their eyes these people are not sexual beings. They are also subject, on the other side, they are also subject to abuse, both accidental and malicious, such as shaming for involuntary erections and inappropriate touching and stripping. Because these places are controlled, they also have limited to no access to erotic materials or possible sexual partners. There are new voices emerging that showcase the disabled body not with affect but with sexuality. This changes the conversation from normative sexuality and explores new avenues of eroticism. These ideas are similar to the thought that if someone loses one of their senses, the others intensify. This is incredibly true of touch. It fosters creativity in what creates a sexual experience for that specific individual. It also changes gender identity, as a lot of traditional gender roles center around ableist ideals. For example, that men should be physically dominant is difficult when a man has cerebral palsy, or for a woman to be homemaker when she is paralyzed. Because of these barriers to normative sex, disabled people are free to think outside the box when it comes to sexual exploration. The most difficult part of developing a sexual culture is lack of access to information. Disabled children rarely get information about sex from their peers, so parents must be proactive in talking about disabled sexuality. Otherwise, they will feel alienated and even discouraged from exploring a sexual culture. And this in itself is difficult because oftentimes parents don't want to talk to their children about sex. I mean, even parents of able bodied children don't want to talk to them about sex. So, but it's one of those things of if they don't talk to them, who will? Um, Mentally disabled people encounter even more issues with this, and that's a little trickier because it delves into consent issues. Are mentally disabled people capable of giving consent? And personally, I see this as a double edged sword because, on the one hand, they are sexual beings like any human, and to deny them a sexual culture infringes on the very points outlined earlier. But this also creates opportunity for sexual exploitation and abuse with very little recourse. And I mean, while mentally disabled adults are adults, um, if they can't comprehend what it means to give consent, that makes it a lot more difficult to do that. So there we go. Those are my videos. Thanks.